I'm Rob, the original, you might say, and welcome to the 100th episode of the 42 to Doomsday podcast. We'd like to thank the BBC and Bad Wolf TV in helping us celebrate this fantastic achievement by announcing the newest Doctor, NCUTI GATWA.
Shooty. Yay!
Yay. How you going, Mark?
I'm good, buddy. How are you? Welcome back.
Rumours of my death have been exaggerated, but like a McDonald's Happy Meal, I'm only here for a limited time only.
And we're all going to be choking on a plastic toy after this. Is that right?
Have you noticed, Mark, that they've replaced their plastic spoons with wooden ones? My daughter, after she's had a hard night doing homework, she wants to go to Macca's. So we roll around at 11 o'clock and ask for a chocolate sundae. And they give us these wooden spoons that feel like you're scraping sandpaper along the top of your tongue. It's disgusting. We have to bring our own metal spoons from the cutlery drawer just to experience the chocolate sundae as God and Ronald McDonald intended.
Have you ever tried the milkshakes at the moment? It's paper straws.
That's awful. That's awful.
Yeah,
you know who I blame? It's the woke generation that celebrated Jodie Whittaker's announcement 5 years ago. I blame you people.
And where are they now, Rob? Where are they now?
Crying into their beer because NCUTI GATWA is the new Doctor.
Shooty.
So obviously, later on in this episode, you and faux Rob, or Rob Lloyd as we say, will be talking about top 5 stories featuring the Master, and with added me sprinkled in throughout the episode, unfortunately.
Yes.
But because that was recorded a couple of days ago, and NCUTI GATWA is the new Doctor, we thought we'd drop this in at the very top of the episode just to entertain ourselves and, of course, our loving audience.
That's right. I've also invited other Rob to give us his thoughts as well, so I'll be adding that into this little segment as well.
As we know, NCUTI GATWA is the new Doctor. I may do that for the rest of his tenure as the Doctor.
Yeah.
So he has been announced. Now, Mark,
yes.
In the past, we've had press conferences,
yes.
We've had live appearances smuggled in a car under a black blanket. We've had confidential episodes wholly devoted to a very young man becoming the Doctor.
Yes.
A few days ago, we all became aware of an Instagram post because, you know, it's 2022 and everyone's on Instagram apparently, from NCUTI GATWA. That's getting old real quick. I won't do that again. His Instagram where there was 2 hearts plus a blue box, and then Russell T Davies liked it, and then it was on for young and old, wasn't it?
A lower key announcement this time, wasn't it, Rob, as you mentioned before? I mean, it seems like the social sort of got wind of it first, and then the news outlets, and then all of a sudden at the BAFTAs, it all sort of came into fruition. But as you said before, there was no special television appearances during the FA Cup. They probably learned their lesson from that one. The confidentials are long gone.
Yes, keep in mind, and it's somewhat paradoxical that television isn't as influential or in people's lives as it was, you know, as little as 4 or 5 years ago. NCUTI GATWA has got apparently an Instagram following of 2.6 million people, which someone pointed out today is actually more people following
Legends of the Sea Devils.
Legends of the Sea Devils.
Probably BAFTA's got more than Legends of the Sea Devils as well.
And, you know, the announcement got an enormous amount of free coverage all around the world. I mean, media is ravenous for free content or just content. And the announcement of a new Doctor, a black actor, a young black actor, just feeds that content wonderfully. So, I mean, it was in the New York Times, it was in CNN, it was in the, you know, the Age newspaper here, the 9 newspapers, it was everywhere.
And the Daily Mail, of course, and the comments section were very enlightening, can I just say? Yeah,
well, social media is its own beast, I suppose, Mark, isn't it? So
Correct, yes.
You're not surprised that a bunch of, you know, keyboard cowards are hiding behind their hate and just posting bile and stuff like that.
Keeps them alive, doesn't it?
The hate keeps them alive. Boiling in their own urine, basically. So, Mark, where were you when the news broke?
I was just sitting at home, I think I was, and all of a sudden, you know, it was like a trickle of rumours and started hitting my direct messages on what applications I'm using, and all of a sudden, and then I started pinging other people going, have you heard this one? They go, yeah, it's on like Donkey Kong, and then the next thing you know is an announcement at 12:30, and yes, it all started, you know, hitting the socials. Then you go, oh, maybe it is true. And of course, when BBC News starts, advertising that it's happening, then you go, yeah, it's locked and loaded, as it were. So it was quite interesting to watch the development of that story carry along, because usually you see stories that start on all the social media and they're clearly debunked in the first 30 minutes, but for a surprise for once, it proved out truthful.
Turned to be true. You did. I mean, I was the same as you. I was tapping madly away at something I'm working on, and you just sort of see messages. It was on Twitter, I think, actually. There were people who were sort of making reference to the Instagram post. So, and then it just all kicked off. I mean, I think in the internet age, everyone basically awake at that time had the same experience, and then to see it confirmed, I get the impression that maybe there was a leak that was coming that they couldn't sort of put their foot down on to stop. So they ran with this. But, on the other hand, as we mentioned before, Shooty's, my mate Shooty, his Instagram following is enormous. So you could leverage that and get all that free publicity. And, I don't think, Bad Wolf Telly paid a single cent to get the news out, and it's out there and it was trending for a while as things trend on the internet. So a bit of a masterstroke really in the end.
Well, the master was running it, wasn't he? Mr. RTD is back behind the chair and pulling all the levers already. Yeah.
Remember last year when the announcement was made that RTD was coming back? Did you sense that there was a groundswell of excitement about that?
There was, except for me at the time. Yes. I'll be honest with you. But look, I've slightly changed, so
Well, I remember sitting in a cupboard, effectively attempting to convince you that it was a good idea what was happening. But my question, pivoting off that, Mark, is, with the announcement of Mr. Gatwa, do you feel a renewed sense of excitement for the show, given where we've been for the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, look, to be honest with you, I've never seen Sex Education. I've never seen any of his work.
What?
So to me, he is a Matt Smith territory, where I had to go and I've never seen that TV show. My wife and my daughter watch it and they reckon it's hilarious.
Yes.
But I know you and Dave Kitchen watch it as well. So like when Matt Smith was cast, I went and watched, Party Animals and a few other shows he was on, to try and get a sense of the man, as it were. I'll go and have a look at this show. And I think he looked on his IMDb, it's about 4 things he's been in. Is that right?
Look, given where I am, he's only 29, which is, shocking. His IMDb, his performance list sort of tallies to a stage production, a Shakespearean production, 2.5 movies. He's in the Barbie movie, like about 90% of Hollywood, apparently, and 3 or 4 TV productions, one of which, as you mentioned, was Sex Education, which I think was his breakout role. If anyone has not watched Sex Education, I invite you to at least watch the very first scene of the first episode, which is really a statement of intent for the show. It is, I think, as you mentioned before, I love it. I think it's, I'm not of the real target age group. It's aimed at my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, who devoured it all 3 seasons in about a week when the 3rd season came out. It's funny, it's poignant, it's entertaining, it's dramatic. And Shooty plays an integral part in the in that series, insofar as he plays an out gay young man, a high school student who's navigating life in the 21st century as a gay man, and but specifically being a gay man of color. His character is not a Nigerian, and in the 3rd season he goes back to Nigeria for a family wedding, and he sort of has to navigate the fact that culturally, religiously, his family back there, homosexuality is an anathema, and he has to sort of come to terms with that. But he gives a real, looking at him, watching him, listening to him, he's an enormously charismatic actor. He really does. Against, is it Asa Butterworth, I think is the actual lead of the show. I think that's who it is. I can't remember. He really holds his own. He's really, really magnetic to look at. He's got a huge smile, just really, a really magnetic performance. So I can see why, if RTD isn't sort of, pulling the other one, he sort of came in at the last moment for his audition and blew the person away that they said that they'd sort of half picked, because he does really dominate the screen. And he can, there's that broadness to his performance, but he also can do the poignant, emotional stuff, dramatic stuff really, really well. So I think they're going to sort of use those talents, charisma, definitely, to inform the writing and the performance of the character.
It's interesting. Unlike Matt Smith, though, he has a already built-in audience with that Sex Education audience, as it were. So it's a bit like Davison with All Creatures, who was established already, had a built-in audience with All Creatures. Basically said, I'm actually intrigued to see how he goes as the Doctor. So that sort of audience travelled along with him. So I would say that there's a little bit of that behind it as well. It's smart, right? So I'm intrigued to see where it goes, and I'm intrigued to see what he does with the role. And my opinion has changed definitely since my slightly dour reaction to when I heard RTD was coming back. So, but then again, having sat through the last 2 specials, I think anything would be an improvement at the moment. So
the test pattern, I think, Mark, would be an improvement. I'm just wondering what approach RTD will take in terms of, I mean, when the show came back, there was the repercussions of the Time War. You didn't see the Time War, you just saw the repercussions on the character of the Doctor. I'm wondering now whether RTD will take a similar approach and jump the series forward from the regeneration of the 13th Doctor and have another instigating galactic-wide event that informs, this new Doctor. I don't know necessarily, but I mean, pure speculation, obviously. But, does it necessarily follow that we see the 13th Doctor regenerate into the 14th Doctor, or do we see, nothing? This is sort of the 13th Doctor's era sort of ends on that regeneration before we see the new Doctor, and then RTD picks it up, however many incarnations forward, for instance, because there could be, further gaps.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest reset since 2005, but I think it'll be foolish to do another galactic war type of scenario. I think it's probably going to be, obviously, Jodie is going in a blaze of rainbow-coloured energy. You've got the 60th anniversary specials next year. Like, it's going to be a mixture of old. Whether that the 14th will play a part of that, I'm not too sure. But certainly, Series 14 will be the debut, I think. Yeah. But I reckon it'll be potted around during those specials as well. But I don't think RTD won't play the Galactic War again. It's been done. You know what I mean? Like,
wondering what sort of reset because the Time War was effectively a reset for the,
if he's got any sense, if he's got any sense, regeneration, don't bother. Yeah. Just have adventures, just have fun adventures, like I remember you saying many years ago. Yeah. I don't think we need to sort of keep dwelling back on the past. I mean, there's been enough wreckage with the turtless children. If RTD wants to fix anything, go and fix that first in one line. Oh no, I dreamt it.
I was in the shower. Actually, we'll get back to the Chibnall and Whittaker era as it bows out a little in a short while. I was just wondering about the pattern that we going ahead in terms of production. So the Centenary special is done and dusted and screens later in the year, obviously around the BBC Centenary. And then I'm assuming that the production of the new era in terms of shooting begins sometime this year. With the 60th anniversary, are we expecting that between the Centenary special and the 60th anniversary special, there will be no Doctor Who on our televisions?
I believe there will be no Doctor Who.
That's fine. Well, no, it's not actually fine. Again, the show is absent for an extended period of time. If we surmise that perhaps there is no appearance of Ncuti at the end of the Centenary special, does that mean at the 60th anniversary, and shoot me down if I'm wrong with that in a sec, does that mean that the 60th anniversary is his first appearance, or do rumours indicate something else entirely?
That's a very good question. Look, if they've got any sense, and I have heard that potentially they are inserting him into the Centenary special to fix it up a bit, the alleged 3 60th anniversary specials, I don't know if they're going to be featuring him at all, but definitely will be featuring a old or 2 or 3 old Doctors in there.
We've obviously partied to the same rumours that sort of circulating. I mean, if Ncuti Gatwa appears in the 60th anniversary and then doesn't appear again until sometime in 2023, do you have a problem of stumbling momentum insofar as, like, Colin Baker appeared in Twin Dilemma and then didn't appear for another 9 months? Would it be better for him not to appear in the 60th anniversary and then just wait for a regular 14th season?
I know what you're coming from, but I think Russell T Davies, even writing something on a napkin, will be slightly better than a Twin Dilemma. So I don't have any problem with a fragmented appearance in one of those specials and then sort of giving you the appetizer before you get to the main course. Yeah. I think these guys know what they're doing. Unlike, in the 80s, where it was very more haphazard and, differences of opinion in terms of quality was slightly, askew.
Reading previous guests, Richard Molesworth's book on the J&T era, I'm stunned that anything actually got made at any point, given
how much your time was in the bar?
Bar, America, a plane over the Atlantic.
Australia.
Anyway, things were different in the 80s. Having lived through it, we should understand that.
All right. Simpler times.
Now, just before we end this segment, so I want to say that I'm really excited about Ncuti Gatwa's casting. And, as excited as a jaded, middle-aged man can be, of course, I just think that the whole regeneration of the production, so taking it away from the BBC, handing it over to Bad Wolf TV, RTD coming back, a new vibrant actor, and the promise of, some pretty good celebrations for the 60th anniversary indicates that the show is not dead. Now, on that score, Mark, just looking back over the last few years, that the Jodie Whittaker era started out with a lot of promise when she was announced, and it seems to have petered out like my bladder control late at night.
You're taking a piss again?
Yes. Look, part of it is COVID cutting into the available episode, the ability to produce a TV series. But, I think that for all the promise that, Chibnall and Whittaker initially sort of, I think, brought to the show, a new approach, there was no new approach. I think Whittaker's bloody performance is just David Tennant in a pair of culottes and a rainbow T-shirt. I don't know why she wasn't pulled aside or wasn't told to bring her own, character, her own, experiences to the performance, because it just feels a lot like Tennant. And Chibnall, for a man who's a fan, I'm just, again, look, making television is hard and writing for television is hard, but I just don't understand when a long-term fan, you've got, production chops, you've produced your own shows, Broadchurch, etc. When it comes to Doctor Who, it just seemed that he didn't quite meet the mark on a lot of occasions, it feels like.
If you sort of look at the announcements that's happened, and I think the fans are definitely looking forward to the RTD 60th anniversary specials and the new Doctor more than the centenary. I mean, there's no hype around it so far. I know it's a little bit further away, but really, apart from the trailer, isn't this the sort of time to get the tires pumped on it? You know what I mean? Try and sort of tease it out.
But this is the problem with this entire era, mate.
That's exactly it.
The publicity for it, it was all in a bloody locked box, dropped into the Pacific and sunk to the bottom. No one knew nothing at any particular point in time about what was coming up. Really, there was no effort really to pump up the tires of the show, to bring hype to an audience. And, the television viewing experience has changed, obviously, and, it's more fragmented and audiences are falling away, but they haven't simply fallen away. I think that they've dropped off a cliff in terms of Doctor Who. And look, again, good on Chris Chibnall for coming in with a clear vision of, what he wanted for his Doctor, a female, break that mold. Great. That's fantastic.
That's all he did. That's all he did there. If you look at it, at the end of the day, what has he done? What has he done these 3 years? He's just cast a woman in the role. I mean, you read the interview in the latest Pravda with him. That was extraordinary. If I'm reading that as another broadcaster or running a production company, and I'm reading that going, I've had the biggest franchise in the world, and I didn't really know what to do with it in 3 years. I mean, I wouldn't be hiring him in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? That's extraordinary.
Well, these days with television, it's all about drawing everything together into one sort of story arc, isn't it? I mean, it's season to season of it's a novel in television. Episodes are chapters. You're in for the long haul, and you could see with Chibnall's, I think, first season or series that he wanted to break that mold and sort of go back to early Doctor Who, where it was story of the week sort of thing, and no real interconnective tissue was there. But and while that sort of broke the mold of what RTD and Moffat did, I think it merely served to highlight that older approach no longer works, and it deprives an audience from becoming truly invested in the characters and their adventures if there are no escalating stakes. If it's just, one story, adventure, move on. One story, adventure, move on. One story, adventure, move on. These days, that doesn't wash with people. They want to dive into a character's arc. They want to dive into a story arc. They want to embrace the full thing and have a full experience, not, bits and bits and bits and bits. And again, I go back to Whittaker. She can clearly act. You watch her in Broadchurch and she's a grieving mother coming to terms with the loss of her child through the 3 series. And she's really good at that, okay? But I think you need a different skill set or a different approach when you come to a family drama or family adventure show like Doctor Who. And again, I haven't watched all the episodes of that era. I've watched about half of them, okay? But I think I can safely say that I don't know that her performance is necessarily indicative of her as an actor. I mean, you can point to the Matt Smith era and go, Matt Smith is definitely playing, a character. David Tennant has brought a particular performance to his era. Jodie Whittaker feels like she was riffing on previous eras, and I very, very, I never got the real sense of the 13th Doctor. Who was the 13th Doctor? And even when Chibnall tries to inject a bit of drama in terms of this burgeoning relationship between Yaz and the Doctor, it seems like it fell out of the clear blue sky and come from nowhere. And there was no, anyone who's saying that it was always there is merely looking back in hindsight and connecting a whole series of disconnected exchanges between the two characters and building that into a blossoming relationship between the two of them. That's not organic, I mean, if that's organic, I'd rather have a crinoid pod inject itself into me and become something else entirely. I mean, I didn't feel that his approach or the overall approach of the show really connected with an audience. And that's really sad because I wanted them to succeed. I wanted him to succeed and I wanted her to succeed. And who knows, down the track, we may reevaluate the entire approach and go, that was pretty good actually. But right now it feels like they fumbled and bumbled, and we're here now where people are looking forward 18 months to the 60th anniversary and not wanting to dwell and celebrate Chibnall's contribution and Whittaker's contribution to the show. It just feels really unfortunate, and I don't want to feel like that.
On reflection, even though I was initially, and I'll use the air quotes here, positive about the Jodie casting, I think, on reflection, I was quite concerned because I didn't think that she had I hate using the word, the gravitas for the role. I mean, I really wish somebody like Ruth Wilson would have been marvellous to the role. Chibnall's writings had lots more misses than hits. And, the audience starting from 8.8 million, and it's now down to 2.2. And even the catch-up figures for the Whittaker era are lower than compared to the Capaldi. I mean, you can't spin it and say it's been successful. I know audiences are fragmented and everything like that, but really, if you're getting beaten by repeats of, was it Bargain Hunt or whatever it was, or Antiques Roadshow, there is something not right.
I mean, the fact that, I think we might have mentioned this when we talked about it at the time that, RTD was announced as coming back. The fact that the BBC is willing to hand over production of the show to a third party effectively to produce it for them indicates that A, they see that there's, inherent value in the show, and B, that you need a particular approach that the BBC can't provide, if I'm making any sense there. I mean, they wanted to succeed, but they've effectively said, well, we can't make it succeed. We can't bring the people in to make it succeed. We're going to hand it off to another organization. And yes, by some accounts, the money that's going to be injected into the show is extraordinary, but the willingness to go back to a previous showrunner and hand it off to another organization is slightly damning in a sense, for the in regards to the BBC, and also perhaps the current production. Look, I don't want to be, look, I've been negative obviously, but I hate being negative because, again, making television is effing hard, and no one goes out to make ordinary Doctor Who. And certainly, during the Chibnall era, there have been some really good episodes. The one with the frog, I really love. People will look at me and laugh, but I love it. The Haunting of Villa Diodati is excellent. But then you get dross like The Timeless Children, and you go, what are you doing? Anyway, I don't want to end this particular segment on a down note, but I'm just a little bit disheartened that this sort of era is petering away. And really, I mean, there are people out there who love this era, and fantastic for them, okay? I mean, I enjoy the Colin Baker era, even though I know objectively it's not very good. And even though I think, this particular era won't be as highly regarded as many of the new series eras, there are people out there who love it, who embrace it, who wanted it to succeed, and for them it has succeeded. So that's fantastic. And I feel sorry for them that there's a whole host of people surrounding them, pointing the finger and saying, this is a failure, when some aspects of it did work.
I think you watched half of it. I've watched about 3/4 of it. So I can't say if it has worked, yes or no, to be honest with you. But if I look at it from a many lens approach where, you got ratings, merchandising, everything like that, it hasn't worked. Even publicity, it hasn't worked. And I get a sense of with this new casting and the future and everything like that, it's more of a case of don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, Mr. Chibnall. It's just
Well,
not a way for it to end the show. Exactly.
But to end this segment on a positive note, I am, as much as, again, a broken down middle-aged man can be, I'm excited to see what Russell T Davies, Bad Wolf Telly, all that Sony money, and Ncuti Gatwa will bring to this new era.
But, I'm a bit disappointed, though. I mean, the fourth Scottish Doctor, come on. What happened to the Welsh, to the Irish? Give somebody else a go.
Mark, devolution only runs one way, to Scotland, mate.
I'm still convinced they've only given it to Ncuti Gatwas because to keep the Scotlands as part tethered to the Empire.
Oh, yes.
Because that revolution / independence vote is a coming, and there's no stopping it.
Actually, I have a question then. If Scotland eventually does become independent, will the BBC ever allow the casting of a Scottish person? Will Sylvester McCoy be allowed out of Scotland to come to the 80th anniversary? I think he'll be about 102 at that point, but anyway.
It'd be like the episode of The Goodies. Remember like the episode of The Goodies where they're trying to break away with those bits, they're trying to push it away from the mainland. That'll be probably it, yes. You've heard our view now, and what we've invited is a friend of the show, Rob Lloyd, who's appearing in our top 5 master episodes to give us his thoughts. So take it away, Rob.
And like that, the 14th Doctor has been announced. Yes, Ncuti Gatwa will be playing our favourite rebel Time Lord. Now, I'm sure I would have been like a lot of you out there listening when we heard the announcement that the 14th Doctor would be Ncuti Gatwa. The first thing I did was to search up who the hell was Ncuti Gatwa. And then I immediately chucked on the first 2 episodes of Sex Education and immediately fell in love with the charm, charisma, delightful personality, and energy and unique style of performance that is Ncuti Gatwa. I've been indulging myself in all his red carpet interviews with Russell the Davies. And I've particularly enjoyed, as I'm sure you all have as well, the 7th Doctor himself, Sylvester McCoy, with a propeller head coming out of the back of his head, welcoming Ncuti to the Doctor Who family, and then having Ncuti reply with a very heartfelt video message to Sylvester McCoy, all the Doctor Who fans, and the other Doctors as well who have reached out. I'm very excited with this new casting, and was quite surprised how it was done in quite a modern way for this old 44-year-old Doctor Who fan to get on board with a rather cryptic 2 love hearts plus sign and a blue box square presented on Ncuti Gatwa's Instagram page that was then shared and retweeted by Bad Wolf Productions. And just as the red carpet event started at the BAFTAs, they stole the show. The 2 delightful figures, Russell the Davies and Ncuti, doing interviews everywhere, and the excitement just grew. I was kind of personally rooting for a person of colour to take the role of the 14th Doctor, particularly a person of colour who identifies as male. So I'm privately very happy and giving myself a little smug pat on the back. I particularly liked how Russell was quite supportive and caring of Jodie's time and saying, let's all focus on her final story and we'll bore you all to tears and we'll annoy the hell out of you in 2023. So it's a very positive start. I'm focusing on all the positives. I haven't seen much of the negativity that some people are talking about. That type of stuff is stuff what I kind of want to step away from. I don't see it as any token gesture. I don't see it as politics or anything like that. Anyone who uses the phrase Doctor Who isn't political clearly hasn't been watching the show. Some of my favorite stories of the 1970s had a very strong political message, and I love that about Doctor Who, and I love that it's inclusive, it's supportive, and as Ncuti said in a beautifully impassioned speech, it's a way of people being seen of all different types and all different identifications, and the Doctor is a representation of people who are not seen as normal being able to be seen and having a voice, which I find incredibly beautiful and warms both of this old man's hearts. So yeah, thanks very much for your time, and I'll send back to to the cranky old bastards who I love more than anything else in this world. Keep punching!
Thanks, Rob. Now, you'll be hearing very shortly our top 5 Master Stories episode. Now, I do indicate that as part of our 101st episode celebrations that we will be manacled together, isn't that right, Rob? And
Yes.
working on a certain feature that a lot of people love, and we'll be dragging our way through a certain year. So you'll have to listen to the very end of the episode to hear what year that is. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll catch you on the other side, as it were. So nice to speak to you again, Rob.
Thank you very much, Mark. Nice to speak to you and our audience once again.
Yes, and say it one more time.
Welcome to Doctor Who, Ncuti Gatwa!
Peoples of the universe, please attend carefully. Welcome to the latest episode of 42 to Doomsday. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob, but not the one that you're expecting.
And in this episode, after more delays than Guns N' Roses' last studio album, we celebrate the 51st and a quarter anniversary of the Doctor's arch nemesis, the Master, making her televisual debut by running through not only our top 5 stories, featuring this troublesome Time Lord, but more importantly, our listeners' picks. And a 42 to Doomsday top 5 episode wouldn't be a top 5 episode without the return of a certain someone who's been involved in the majority of our top 5 countdown since 2014. And to help us with this special, would you say masturbatory episode, we welcome back friend of the podcast, Rob Lloyd. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I hope that I am in 42 to Doomsday's top 5 of guests who have appeared on the show. Very interested to find out where I rank within your guests.
Moving on, how you been?
I've been good, just finished Comedy Festival and just enjoying getting back on stage and being in front of people and making them laugh and cry.
Now, you did a James Bond
We did, a James
show.
Bond tribute with
Yes.
me and my comedy partner, Mr. David Innes. He's a huge James Bond fan. I'm a sort of like a James Bond adjacent person, so I've been aware of Bond, but I've become a lot more interested in Bond over the last couple of years, and I've gone back to watch the backlog. My dad's a huge Bond fan, so I've been learning from him a lot over the last couple of years as well. So yeah, we did a tribute to James Bond because it's the 60th anniversary this year of the release of Dr. No. Gosh. Yeah, as long as there's been James Bond movies, there's been James Bond parodies and comedy send-ups. So we wanted to find something different so we weren't becoming like Inline Flint or Austin Powers or anything like that.
Baby.
Yeah. So we did our story from the point of view of a henchperson. So the people that we root and support in this show are the villains, and the evil, dark, menacing presence in the background is James Bond. So that was a lot of fun. It was great to get up. We had a lot of James Bond fans and a lot of people who are aware of James Bond come along to see the show. So we got some really good responses, and that was a lot of fun.
Did you see the last movie? The last Bond film? Did you?
Eventually, yeah.
What did you think?
Look, there were some really exciting parts in it. I reckon they should have stayed in Cuba.
Yeah.
That was the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like nicely wraps up the whole Daniel Craig era, and we'll reboot the whole thing again.
I thought the explosion was the equivalent of the Timeless Children. Just blow it all up and he's gone.
I could see the Barbara Broccoli and they're going, let's see how the fandom deals with this.
Yes. Spoilers, by the way. And top 5 Bond villains, if we had to do them.
Top 5 Bond villains. All right. Well, you've got to have Blofeld in there, obviously. You've got to have Javier Bardem. You've got to have from Skyfall.
Yes.
Is amazing.
Yes.
Unironically, wow, it's hard for me to say, love Jonathan Pryce.
Yes.
In Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yes.
So, but I think my favourite one is Alex Trevelyan from GoldenEye. I think Sean Bean is my favourite of the Bond villains. And you?
Well, Blofeld, obviously.
Which Blofeld, though?
Well, actually, I quite like Telly Savalas on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Ah.
Isn't it? Yeah, I quite like him. Christopher Walken.
In View to a Kill.
Ironically, one of the best theme songs they did.
And one of the worst movies.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Duran, it's an incredible song.
It's an incredible song, and it's just a turd of a film.
It is so bad.
It's so bad. What else was there? Yes, I think the guy from Skyfall, I can't remember his name, he was good. Silver.
Yes.
Long John Silver.
I also like Robert Darby in
Yes, in
License to Kill.
License to Kill is very underrated.
Very
I quite like that. I quite like the Dalton films, actually. I think I'm only one of the 3 people who do.
I like them as well, and so does Innes. His favourite Bond film is Living Daylights.
And the song's good too.
It is. It caused one of the last things that caused John Barry to go, you know what? I'm done with this.
I'm done.
He did not do well with Aha.
No, and Aha didn't do well with him.
No.
Oh, well, I'm glad it went well. And can I ask you a question, though?
Yes.
In terms of Never Say Never Again, canon or non-canon?
Oh, it is so non-canon. Never Say Never Again is the Peter Cushing films.
But they're slightly better.
And they're just coming out in 4K.
I know,
soon.
it's fantastic, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yes, you buy them again and they're doing special cinema screenings.
They're definitely screening in the cinemas in the UK, but will they get a screening here?
No.
Will the Astor do it like they did
the Astor might do
for the 50th? That's the thing. I always go into the Peter Cushing movies going, you know what? I'll just embrace it for what it is, and I'll be able to enjoy it just as what it is. But every time I sit down, and as soon as Peter Cushing is referred to as Doctor Who, and he walks into his thing that he calls TARDIS, I just go, no, I'm out. I try so hard. The second one is better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Canon Lanon. Now, speaking of Canon Lanon, I should be an FM radio. Legend of the Sea Devils.
Yes.
Now, you watched it.
I did, and I wrote a review of it.
I know, and I read it with great interest. We're not going to repeat it word for word, but just some highlights for you of the episode.
For me, I loved seeing the Sea Devils back, and I really liked the updated realization of them. I loved how they communicated without moving their mouths, and you could see the pulsing in their necks and throats for how they spoke. So it was sort of like a really cool effect, which I really liked. One of the only things I like about Chris Chibnall's era is he brings in these lesser-known figures from history. He doesn't do anything with them, but he introduces them. So you can find out more about, Madam Ching and all this type of these great figures from history that you read up and you go, these people are badass. I liked how they dealt with the Dr. Yaz situation. That was good to address. And there was a great pace to it. There was a great fun energy to it. And I've been shocked. I've been absolutely shocked going... Everyone, people going, they couldn't watch it all the way through. They were like, there was this disdain and disgust and hatred for it about they're going, it should have been 20 minutes longer and all this type of stuff. I'm there going, have you not seen any other Doctor Who stories? There are so many other stories with bad pacing and cramming everything into an hour, and we kind of forgive those stories. And I don't know why this story in particular wasn't forgiven like other stories have. I've seen certainly a lot worse Doctor Who stories. I've seen better Doctor Who stories, but the hatred that this story has been getting online, I've just gone, are you serious? I thought it was a fun, breezy, pacey adventure story. Maybe it's because it's getting towards the end. Maybe that expectation of this should be something bigger, kind of like the hatred that there was for the Eater of Light, which was Capaldi's second last story, and second last official story, and people going, and there was that expectation it was Rona Munro coming back. It's the second last story.
Can't really hit a souffle.
So that's I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. The shot of the TARDIS underwater with the school of fish swimming around and the Merca not Merca was quite good.
the non-canon Merca.
They're going, where's Ingrid Pick? That was my thoughts, and I'm assuming...
Well, as usual, you are the olive oil to my balsamic vinegar.
Bring on the bowl.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I think I'm just going to edit my review while I'm talking to you because a lot of it is not great. But look, let's just go through it anyway. Look, it carries on the tradition, the great tradition of the new series stuffs up another classic monster. The only thing that got right was a scream. The scream of the Sea Devil was ripped from the episodes. That was actually very good.
The moment when the Sea Devil dies, you hear
the scream.
That
So,
was great.
although I thought it might have been Malcolm Hobbs screaming from the grave, because I got his name wrong. They spelled his name wrong in the credits. There are fans making the show, apparently.
Yeah. It was also the great time in the Matt Smith era when they had...
Oh, yes.
Anybody remember Metebolus 3?
Metebolus 3. And there's no ADR, is there? Oh, my God. Anyway... I'd say it was badly acted, laughable CGI, and I actually found it really boring.
Wow.
And I know I'm going to shock you again. I watched all the Flux, and I watched was it Eve of the Daleks?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was awful, and I thought this carried on the tradition of
Did you like any of Flux?
Oh, 2 episodes.
Did you like the Centaurans?
Yes.
They were good, weren't they?
And the Village of the Angels, I thought was quite
Village
good as
of
well.
the Angels was pretty good.
It was quite good, but the
What
rest of
about
it was...
Mr. McNally? He was...
It was nice to see him in a decent story for once.
and not in a whatever gaudy costume he had for Twin Dilemma.
Yes, silver is not reflective in today's age. The wallpaper and paste of Doctor Who, as I call them, the Jodie Whittaker and Yaz. They continue the on-screen, air quotes, magic. The love scene was excruciating to watch, to be perfectly honest with you, Rob. I still feel Whittaker's Doctor is all over the place in terms of characterisation. I can't find a hook on it. I still think it's Tennant in drag.
I do agree with what some people have said. It's the first modern Doctor that is heavily influenced by another modern Doctor. So obviously Eccleston created his Doctor off his own back, and he had
bitterness.
Bitterness. God bless that man.
Yeah.
Tennant kept it under the radar until he'd been the Doctor for about a year and a half, and then he let slip how much of a massive fan he was. So he had all that history there. Matt Smith clearly did his homework, and he's talked about it openly, and he started out loving Troughton, and then he moved into Baker, so he had that classic homework. Capaldi, obviously, born-again nerd, after he burnt everything when he became an art student. But Whittaker has had that experience with the classic series, but she's clearly influenced by David Tennant. But it's also that case of, I've said this before, for me, I see her as the modern equivalent of Peter Davison, as in Davison's Fifth Doctor came in, and for his entire tenure, for me, he was consistent. He was the same in every story. You get to his final story, and it's because he was written by a master, and so that's why it elevates to something more. With Peter Davison, there was no incredible highs, but there were no horrible lows. The stories may have been all over the shop, but you could always rely on him. With Whittaker, she's been kind of the same. She's been this same level of performance, slightly performance-y, slightly upbeat, but there's never been that moment that grabs you by the throat and goes, this is the Doctor. But for me, there's never been any moments that's been god-awfully, cringily horrible. She hasn't found her place with the Doctor, which is a shame. She's kind of, it's all been surface level, but it's been just the same, so it's kind of plateaued. So for the whole time, very much like
a bit like her ratings, they sort of plateaued and shrank. I've tried. I've tried.
Have you tried?
I've tried. Now, was that Madam Chin?
Madam Chin came and wanted to get a certain thing, and so she destroyed the statue. Then the statue came alive and killed the father.
That's right.
The result of her actions caused the father to die.
And then the son, basically, I hate you, all of a sudden at the end, I'll hug you and I'll just join your crew.
I saw the journey of it in the way of that the son learnt the whole story, and he didn't just see it as this and that, and he also learnt the humanity that she had. She was out to find her crew back, her children, and and that she was protecting him, and so she saw the humanity of her. So it was a case of people going, "What? He's going on along this way and changed." I could actually see the subtle evolution of that, of he understanding her and she understanding him.
Usually the 7 stages of grief are longer than 45 minutes.
There's only so much you can do within the confines of a...
And my short attention span. Dan was left to the side a bit, which I think was a shame.
When it comes to Dan, I haven't been completely convinced by Bishop as an actor. He's a quite successful stand-up.
Yes.
But I've always find that he's emotionally distant with his characterization of Dan. And like as opposed to the great Bradley Walsh, who was just inhabited Graham straight away and had this great range of sadness and anger and despair and happiness.
He should have been a
joy.
doctor, I'll be honest with you.
So there's only been moments for me where Dan's really connected. So John, for me, he's quite a good stand-up, but he hasn't had that emotional connection for me with Dan.
Okay. It's interesting because the other characters do nothing for me. He's the only stand-up for
That
me
you
that I
got
latched
for?
onto. Yeah, so a bit like the hook he wore. I listened to another podcast, the Deadly Dumb podcast the other day, and they were talking about the story. And I think it was Hayden who mentioned that it's a bit insensitive of Dad to wear a pirate hook when his on-off girlfriend has missing an appendage. So I thought it was a little bit of a slip there. For me, I don't like watching Doctor Who and not enjoying it. That's why I actually stopped watching a lot of her eras, because I just wasn't enjoying it, and I thought I was better to move away from it and just take a bit of a break. But I have been watching it, but coming out of it going, I didn't like that more than what I actually say. I want to enjoy it and I want to like it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like because we've been with it for so long, with a classical modern, some of us longer than I have. But that whole bias or weight that we put upon the showrunner in the modern era, and it happened in the classic era as well, especially post Hinchcliffe era, there was always this expectation of what a showrunner could do. From what I've heard about stuff, Barry Letts just kind of did his thing. Him and Uncle Terry could do whatever they want. And that was the same with Philip and Robert Holmes. But then once they left, there was that expectation amongst fans of what a showrunner should do. So Graham Williams had a lot of issues. John Nathan Turner had a lot of issues the longer he stayed. And that carried on over with the modern era. And there's been a lot of baggage connected with Chibnall, with his haphazard approach to the
everything,
show.
really.
Well, yeah. And like from someone who has created such a landmark, popular, mainstream drama hit with something like Broadchurch to come into this with clearly no roadmap and clearly making steps. And he's openly admitted that in the most recent Doctor Who magazine interview.
That's astonishing.
Yes.
Isn't it real? I mean...
And the fact that he's saying that so openly.
I've got no plan.
It was fascinating because Russell the Davies, when he did season 1, he was very open. Like he even did commentaries on season 1, and he made it quite clear that they were learning as they were going. Yeah. But he had the clear outline of the year set out. He knew exactly what he wanted in story wise. But as they were filming, he created this whole arc of the Bad Wolf thing. He's openly said that he had no idea what Bad Wolf was. They had their story structure, but they had to resolve it at the end of season 1. So there's that case of he had the structure of what he wanted each story to be, but he shaped that arc as he went along. And of course, he refined that in season 2, 3, and 4. Some successful, some not. But with this, Chibnall has openly said that I had no idea what I was doing. So he's taken these wild sweeps for no other reason than to destroy lore and continuity just for the sake of making an impact, so that he can be remembered for something. But it's caused a negative effect, and it's just built up this resentment and this bias towards him to the point now where I don't think we'll be able to look objectively upon Whittaker's era for a while. It's the same thing, like even with season 10 of Capaldi's final year was a remarkable achievement.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's really good.
But there was so much negativity that was carried over from the darkness of season 8, some of the missteps in season 9, though I think season 9 is an incredibly strong season as well. So it's that case of, it will be interesting to see how we judge Whittaker's era within the confines of the rest of it. So once we get, the second coming.
I was just going to say, because we haven't spoken since the R2D2 news broke. What did you think about that?
I posted about it as well. I mean, he as a writer has evolved as a writer. And the stuff that he's been doing is landmark. Like, It's a Sin and Years and Years.
And the Very British Scandals.
Very British Scandals. 3 incredibly powerful, popular, devastating pieces of drama. And he's evolved as a writer over 10 years. He's in a different place. It'll be interesting. And I think it's a case of, because he's such a fanboy, he finally gets to do an anniversary special. He wants to do it.
And he needs to fix up what's happened.
Yeah.
And he is. He's editing the centenary special.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's fixing it up a little bit.
But it's that case of, remember the Doctor's half human.
I don't remember that.
So we as fans are quite durable in what we accept as canon. And, there's, I've talked about this many times, unlike with Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that, which was shaped by one mind, then other people have taken on. Star Wars was George Lucas, and then they tried to give it to J.J. Abrams.
Oh my God!
How about we actually, what fans have been saying for years, just give it to Dave Filoni, and now Filoni's got it with Favreau. But with Doctor Who, it was always by committee, and it was just a case of the next group comes in, goes, I'll take this, I'll take that, I'll take this, I'll take that, and so therefore we as fans are quite selective of what we accept as canon or not. Because there is no pure canon in Who.
In my mind, there is.
I
know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
And that gives open. So your interpretation of canon is different to my interpretation of canon. Yeah. And we as old old crudgy bastards of Doctor Who have different
Yes.
views of canon to
Correct.
modern fans.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
they're more flexible with
It's
it.
the only fandom that. So your opinion
Yeah.
is right, and my opinion's right.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
and so every argument on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever on social media about that's not canon, that's not canon.
pointless.
Yeah, it's pointless because
You're cancelling each other out.
Exactly, because everyone's
Yeah.
right. Doctor Who is the perfect version of a multiverse. It's all in there all at once.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, well, it's interesting. The Centenary Special, the trailer.
were you excited or were you?
Well, let's get your olive oil.
Always defer to
Olive
me.
oil. Come on, you're the guest, olive oil.
I knew he was coming back, but I was disappointed with the Joker Master coming back.
Oh, he's awful, isn't he?
Look, it's a shame. And have you watched the box sets, Blu-rays have been coming out, and I
Yes.
love the classic ones.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and rewatched them during lockdown. And one thing I didn't get, one of the special features I didn't get, but I adore them now, is Behind the Sofa. I never really got it. Then I started watching them. Went, these are friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the pairings are fantastic. And
Yeah.
on the season 8 box set, they had Sasha and his wife, who was in
Sarah
Jane Adventures, and she was also in the Nicole Tesla episode of Jodie Whittaker. And he's there talking about like watching Roger Delgado, an incredible, masterful performance of the Master. Oh, he plays it very calm and very calm. I was very loud and bombastic, and
You go,
David
"No,
Innes
shit,
and I
Sherlock."
there going, I don't think he realizes how bad he is.
Yeah,
And it's a shame. He's quite a good actor, but he's just not a very good Master.
No, he's terrible. And he's dressed like the Joker.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Cesar Romero, I'll be honest with you. Like that same sort of plum costume and
Yeah.
I don't like him.
So
No.
I knew he was coming back, and I
Yeah.
wasn't surprised. Yeah, the big surprise was seeing the return of two beautiful faces who I never thought would come back.
Yaz and Graham.
Graham
Yes.
is coming back.
Yeah,
which
Graham
is
is coming
good.
back. Yes. Interesting dialogue. It was like, well, I haven't seen a doctor for 40 years. Well, I've seen him for 30.
Oh,
It's like, come on.
Oh, look.
You know.
it's the same dialogue that was in School Reunion.
Yeah,
with
it's
Rose
like,
and
yeah.
Rose and Sarah fighting over the
Yeah.
boyfriend.
Are you looking forward to watching it?
Anything with Sophie Aldred in it, I'm very excited.
Mm.
Janet Fielding is a hoot. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes getting back in front of a camera after so many years and after
yes.
being a talent agent for so long.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing the demise of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor going out in a blaze of rainbow-coloured energy.
Yeah, the Fanta explosion, as I call it.
Yeah.
I was thinking that are they going to try and pull it off? Are they, because they've started filming?
Yes, that's right. They've got exactly.
They're on set.
Yes.
So it hasn't been leaked yet.
No,
who the next Doctor is.
It's there. It's there. They're filming the 60th specials very short. Well, I think they're filming them now.
Well, I think they're on location.
Three specials.
Russell's back on social media, which is very good to see.
Yeah.
Russell the Davies. And he showed himself at the Carlett Studios. And there's rumours going around that they've set up, Bad Wolf has got the big
Sony dollars.
Sony money now.
Yeah.
And they've set up a version of the drum, the technology that they use for The Mandalorian. They're using, they're going, this is smart. This is how you make Doctor Who nowadays.
Yeah. Even an old curmudgeon like me who was very disappointed when RTD was announced as a new showrunner, or new old showrunner. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he does with it. Everybody says to me, Mark, he's done all this quality work since he left Who, but I always have that fear in the back of my mind, oh my God, he's going to do another Last of the Time Lord, And then you got Phil Collinson back, it's like getting the old committee back without having that sanity check. But look, it'd be interesting to see what he does with it. And
A big thing for me was Bad Wolf are doing this production of the series, His Dark Materials.
Yeah, my wife's watching it and just loves it.
Yeah, and I recommend it to all Doctor Who fans. It's if you'd seen the Golden Compass movie years ago, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
This is done. Julie Gardner. You watch it and you go, right, this is how they'll do Who. They've got incredible actors, great money put into special effects because it's all HBO, and the soundtrack is incredible. They're going, that's how we do Who now. They know once they've got some money behind them. As Russell T has said, the BBC is dead. It was killed years ago by the government, and so the only way its property can stay on is within companies like Bad Wolf that will protect it and keep it safe.
Plus, any decisions they make are them editorially, as opposed to the BBC, who then have to say, "Oh no, we can't do this, we can't do
Yes,
this,"
which is
like
so
that.
controlled by the government stranglehold.
Yeah, and policies. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So
it'd be interesting to see which writers he brings back. There's some great writers have been kind of left by the wayside from previous seasons, like some of the writers within the Aussie writer Sarah Dolan, who wrote Thin Ice. It'd be great to have her back. My favourite writer, Jamie Matheson, who wrote Oxygen and Mummy on the Air Experiment. There's some really good writers there's some actually good writers within the Whittaker era that should be given a second chance as well. Just a wonderful writer who wrote The Haunting of Villa di la Notte, Maxine Alterton. She's a great writer as well. There's plenty of good writers that Russell T should just pool his resources and bring in other good professional writers who can do good Who. Exciting times.
Yes. Now, Rob, I asked original Rob for his thoughts on the Legend of the Sea Devils. Here is a transcript of the discussion that Rob and I had. So we're going to act this out. So I'm going to be me, and you're going to be other Rob. Okay?
Right. Okay.
So
let me just channel other Rob. Other Rob. Okay. Horror Fang Rock.
Hammer to Fall. Did you watch the Sea Devils episode yet, Rob?
I watched the first 5 minutes and then promptly checked myself into an institute for the mentally insane. Today, I happily occupy my days drawing caricatures of Chris Chibnall with my own feces, and I intend submitting one of these to the Archibald Prize for Best Portrait.
So there you go. That's the continuing the 42 to Doomsday fair and balanced approach there.
I think he's made his opinion quite clear.
Absolutely. And let's press on undeterred with our top 5 master stories.
Hey!
And now it's time to go through our top 5 master stories. I've got my top 5. You've got your top 5. I've got all our listeners' entries as well. And we're also going to be dialing in Rob, original Rob, I should say. We're dropping him his top 5 as well. So, that'll be all happening as well at the same time. So, what we'll do is I will always defer to the guest in terms of who's going to go first. If we've got any snaps, we will obviously say snap, and we'll just sort of give our points of view.
Number 5.
My number 5, drum roll please. The Deadly Assassins.
Oh, that's a snap for me, but the different positioning.
Yes. For me, it's incredibly tight, high energy, tense story. It's iconic. So much Doctor Who lore is brought in. The change of the Time Lords from being these omnipotent type of godlike creatures to being this decaying society of old curmudgeon-y white dudes falling apart, not just going through these ritualistic ceremonies and not really remembering what it actually means is...
Don't look at me when you say those things if you don't mind.
It's just your eyes. Yeah. They're very enchanting. Baker is in fine form, having the Castellan and the other lovely old character helping him out is wonderful. And the Master is very good. It's a different type of Master. It's that animalistic, bestial Master who's hiding in the shadows and is so vicious and really quite psychotic and evil. When you look at Delgado's performance, it's that gentleman menace.
Yes.
But you never think he's insane. You just think he is pure evil, but there's no psychotic nature to it. That's been brought in quite a lot recently, and it starts here. It starts here with the decaying, hooded Master that is out for is a lot more bloodthirsty and a lot more psychotic. So it's not my ideal version of the Master. Once he starts going into psychotic serial killer type mood, it steps away from what I like about my version of the Master is more that Moriarty mastermind as opposed to just a random insane person. Such an iconic story, and the dream sequence in the Matrix is incredible.
It is, absolutely. And you mentioned the insaneness of the Master. Unfortunately, a lot of those actors who've come after that have taken it to turn up to 11 almost, haven't they, really? Which is a shame, really, because Pratt, even though he's under a lot of makeup and everything like that,
What he does with his voice.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's really, really good. It's later on in my list, so we'll get back to that. But I like that one. It's a great story.
And what's your number 5?
My number 5 is the Demons.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah. So now I'm not too sure if you realise this, but
In season 8,
every single story.
Oh, was Roger Delgado in every single story?
Every single story.
I wonder how John Pertwee found that.
Oh, no.
Apparently, he's a bit threatened by that. Maybe is that true?
The great man. So basically, while some of the stories in that season are very alien invasion of the week, sort of scenario, this one sort of breaks the mold a bit. I've actually got another pick in later on in my list, which is from the same season. But the Master embraces his inner vicar of Dibley, as it were, embeds himself in a community, in a village, as the Reverend Magister in Devil's End. And I just love the fact that he, the Master. Can you imagine the Master in the confessional box, hearing all this gossip and who's shagging who and whatever, deepest darkest secrets of his parishioners, and then he's actually in terms of the villagers, he's actually assembling a crack troop of rednecks and yokels.
That's right.
A bit like One Nation supporters to do his bidding, and in a way, it's actually a lot more frightening for me that he's actually taking control of a small village and ostracised a lot of people. Well, like Hawthorne and a couple of the unit people. And in terms of that power, it's actually quite frightening.
It's very much a tribute to that very British version of sci-fi.
Yes.
From that 60s.
Quatermassy almost.
Bit Quatermassy. It's got that whole, the writer of Day of the Triffidsy type feel as well, that was brought to life so beautifully in the part 3 of the Cornetto trilogy in World's End.
Yes,
the World's End, which is very much that small town menace. Evil, the village or the village.
Again, he's very obsessed with obtaining power and ruling the earth. I assume it's only a stepping stone to a usual universal domination.
I think it's been talked about quite a lot. A credit to Delgado's performance that he has created such an endearing villain that you end an episode on a cliffhanger of the villain in peril.
Yes.
And you're there going, would you ever see that in any other show? That the villain, you are there going, oh my gosh, is the bad guy going to be okay?
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
For once, exactly. And in terms of his schemes, this one's actually quite lo-fi. It's actually quite like, I'll just summon up this piece of whatever and see what happens.
Stephen Thorne will come back and ham it up.
Exactly.
Topless Stephen Thorne.
The whole occult thing and everything like that. Delgado in that room, all the villagers and all starting to question him and everything like that. And then all of a sudden he sends out Bok to kill Wednesday, and all the villagers turn around and said, I better stick with him. But it's fantastic. Look, from a Doctor Who perspective though, it's definitely an overrated story, but from a Master's scheming point of view, quite enjoy it.
Yeah, and how Delgado relishes that whole occult and the
he's
the
made
demonic
for
legend. Yeah, like in the
bloody beard,
the pointed beard, and when he's in the red regalia. I've got that action figure set, which is the Brigadier and the Master in the full red gown, and it's just such a great iconic version of dear old Delgado.
And it comes with a couple of plastic pint glasses as well for the end of the story.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good Master story.
Yeah, I've gained a lot more appreciation. We talked about it when one of the first podcasts I did with you guys was the John Pertwee era, and we talked about the Daemons and how it's picked up in my
estimation.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, that was.
We've been doing this a long time.
Number 4.
Drum roll, please. I'm trying to get a bit of coverage, as many of the Masters as possible. Okay. You'll find this. So I've gone for Pratt in the first one. Trying to think of what will be my perfect Ainley episode.
Yep.
Underrated story, and I think it is underrated because I think it is actually quite a good story. He was given so many pieces that he needed to fit into this story, and he did it quite effectively so that Robert Holmes had all the fun to do in the final story.
Yeah.
Planet of Fire.
Oh, yes.
It's a good Ainley Master performance.
Yeah.
Because for most of it, he's in the suit.
Yes.
As opposed to
the penguin costume.
Yeah. And so he's just in the white shirt, the black suit, and the black tie. There's this swagger about him, like when he's in the temple and he's claiming himself to be the holy one. He does it with a swagger, which you don't really see. You see Ainley is a bit more pompous and a bit of this caricature of what he perceived Delgado to be. But there's a swagger and a confidence, and there's a good bond between him, Davison, because they shared so much screen time together within the era, and that famous ending when he evaporates in flames with the "you killed your own ... and him playing, his chameleon, struggling within himself as well. So there's a lot that Ainley has to do, because Ainley is an incredible actor. The bits where he appears not as the master, he's great. He's great in Traken. He's great in Castrovalva.
Yeah.
The less we talk about Time Flight, the better. We both did at the same time go, we're not...
Although somebody I know who'll be dropping in has got to mention Time Flight. So, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, is that in his top 5?
Yes.
Jesus. I like Planet of Fire. He had to do... Grimwood had to do a lot to solve everything. Introduce a new companion. Say goodbye to Turlo. Say goodbye to the Master. Say goodbye to Chameleon. Get all this in there. It's a lovely...
J&T shopping list.
Yeah.
Again, and he went
and he did it really well.
Really
and I
well,
think
absolutely.
Ainley does very well in it as well. He's quite menacing as well, like him menacing poor old Perry.
Yeah.
There's a confident swagger about him, and that's not as hammy. He is still in that ballpark, but it's not as bad as
some of the performances.
Yeah.
Sort of mention it later on, is that J&T tells Anthony, more steel, Anthony, and of course he hams it up.
Yeah.
But when it's more
steel,
subtle,
not ham.
Yeah, exactly. When he brings it back, there are some really good performances there. But unfortunately, you sort of think, oh God, Time Flight, King's Demons, certain extent, 5 Doctors. And then it just gets worse, and then he sort of brings it back at the end. That's a good choice, though, and I think it's actually David Kitchen's favourite story of the 80s.
Well, there you go. Yeah. I like Planet of Fire. It's underrated, and it's not wham bam, but it's a slow burn, and it's a nice burn.
As you said, that shopping list, if they only had one more story in between Caves and that, it just seems to be like it was pushing everybody out.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why maybe it doesn't get the recognition it deserves, but also that DVD that they did, that special edition at the beginning of it. Oh my God.
So we don't talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
We don't talk
Jesus
about the special
Christ.
edition. Adding in the filming of the new scenes. We don't talk about that.
What the heck was that? Anyway, but...
That was Fiona Cummings?
Yeah,
she did it with all her stories. She did it with Enlightenment as well.
Yeah, I think Enlightenment she had more control, but this one was just like... No. Not
at all.
Not really.
Hey, Mark, what's your 4th story?
Well, my 4th story, Rob, actually, is World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. Now...
Well, that's a ping.
It's a ping?
It's a ping. Mine's higher.
It's a snapperoonie. So basically, I counted them. There have been 21 stories of the new series to feature the Master. And they've ranged from good, hello Utopia, awful, shite. However, World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls for me is not only the best Master story of the new series, it's actually the best story of the new series that's ever been produced. We talked about Planet of Fire before. We had that shopping list of things that they had to do, And, I can mention, Terrence Dix was given one. Like you said, Grimwade. Holmes was given one as well. Now, Mr. Moffat, when he's given the shopping list, or when he actually creates his own shopping list, when he has to tie so many plot strands together, it's either going to be, that's not bad, or a complete mess, or now I've got to go to a Wikipedia page to understand what the hell is going on. I did do that on The Big Bang, and I still have no idea what happened. However, in this story, he managed to surprise and delight on so many levels. John Sim came back, and he actually dialed his performance down, and it was much more subtle. And in this story was the only story I actually really enjoyed Michelle Gomez's Missy.
Well, that's the thing where we're very different. Yeah, I adore Michelle Gomez as a performer. What she brings to her roles in everything she does, from Book Club to Green Wing to even the new Sabrina series. I think she's a fascinating performer, and I can just watch her read the phone book. But yes, I'm aware that she's not to your taste. But yeah,
yes,
this is in season 10 especially. All her appearances in season 10 and her work with Capaldi is outstanding. Her and Capaldi are a magnetic team, and then bring in Sims into that.
Yes,
all 3 of them just
bounced off each other. And I think if you sort of look at the history of the program, I think that was actually the right time to do a multi-master story. You know what I mean? This is going to sound ridiculous now, but when I was watching it, I had no idea that Razor was John Sim. And he pulled off the mask. I actually went, Oh my God.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? That's
I
don't know.
great.
Just a bit thick. I don't know, but I was completely like blindsided by it. Cliffhanger to World Enough in Time was really effective with the two masters sort of taunting Capaldi almost with, and then Bill comes out as a Cyberman. It's actually quite devastating. And Capaldi is we've got a bit of man crush, let's be honest with him.
Look, we have the biggest man crushes on.
Such an awesome actor. He can sell that anguish and the horror of what's happened to Bill. It was really interesting to see in that story where Missy was being pulled between the dark side, and also she's trying to be a friend back to 12th Doctor. But, John Sims there trying to egg her on in terms of going back to the old days.
It's that whole thing of season 10 is about the Master reliving every murder, every plot, every horrible thing they've done and trying to find some recovery and redemption. And then it's the best step. Can a villain be redeemed?
Yeah.
Or will their past dictate who they are forever?
Absolutely, yeah.
Powerful stuff. And just to have Sims be literally the embodiment of her evil past.
And he's just going, what?
Yes.
What's that become? Yeah, and in terms of like the new series, it's one of the very few stories I've actually gone back and watched.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely, it's fantastic. And even better is you get the genesis of the Cybermen.
Yes.
So much better than what Jerry Davis could have done in the 80s. It's just fantastic,
Yeah.
And then the sad thing is, though, that it could have been the greatest regeneration story since Caves of Androzani. And of course, what they followed up with, Turd Upon a Time.
Well, and that's another thing where you are the balsamic to my olive oil. Because I adore Twice Upon a Time.
Yep. And this is why I have you on every year.
Every year.
But in terms of that story, I think it's absolutely a supreme piece of drama and a really good Doctor Who story.
Yeah.
And to see Capaldi just firing on all cylinders and the rest of the cast as well.
I say this all the time. We as fans did not deserve Peter Capaldi, and we should be so grateful that we got him for the time that we did. And what he brought to it over 3 seasons is just someone of his caliber. Him in the show is like Patrick Troughton being in Doctor Who. They're going, these are people who are
consummate professionals.
Yeah, and can channel something deeper than any other actor.
And make really crap stuff watchable.
Oh my God.
And that's the thing, that's the problem with Whittaker, is that she's had a lot of crap stuff, but the performance hasn't lifted it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you're not only stuck with crap material, you're stuck with a performance that's mediocre. So it's sort of not a very good blend.
No.
A bit like International Roast. When you go to a hospital,
Yes.
International Roast hospital blend.
Oh,
not great.
Not good. Number 3. Now, it is not a good story by any shape of the imagination, but you probably rate it a lot higher than their return appearance quite recently. But it is an incredible Master story, and it's an incredible Master performance, and it's a great Doctor-Master relationship in The Sea Devils.
I love The Sea Devils.
Yeah.
The original. The original.
Well, I love both appearances. I'm not even talking about Warriors of the Deep.
Come on.
There has to be a better way. The Sea Devils are sort of like passengers in their own story. The main drivers of this is that connection between Delgado and Pertwee. The scenes in the prison, the opening scene is just how Delgado manipulates him into feeling sympathy for him, and how he just laughs it off. It's gorgeous. The sword fight is...
and he gets a sandwich.
The sandwich, beautiful.
Yes.
Them fighting over control with the Sea Devils and trying to manipulate the Sea Devils and these poor creatures not being
caught
able
in the middle,
to... caught in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
And the great jokes, the clankers playing and the look on Delgado's face. Yeah, it's just how he works with Pertwee and how they were two characters meant to be together.
You can tell the off-screen friendship also has really sort of dovetailed into their working life as well. So that it's given an extra oomph, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I adore it. It's a fun one to watch. It's one of I hadn't seen all of season 2 by the time that I watched this within my watching of the stories for the first time. So this one was a real surprise for me. It was one of my first Master stories that I saw, actually. And I went, oh, this is good. This is great. This is a wonderful relationship. It's a shame this isn't explored more within you kind of get, for every Sea Devils, we have to put up with
Time Monster
or Colony in Space, or even, God forbid, Claws of Axos, where there's no development of their story, but there are other such powerful relationships built.
And it's a shame he died, because I think if you look at what could have been with Planet of the Spiders, where it just could have brought that next level to it, and with the sort of the pathos of Pertwee leaving as well.
Yes.
They're both leaving. It would have been incredible, I think.
Of any Doctor era, sharing that final end with both actors would have been very poetic. So yeah, Sea Devils is my number 3. Just there's so many fun moments between the Doctor and the Master, and it's so much a case of they are the mirror image of each other. You've got, for me, like Capaldi and Gomez are the perfect Master Doctor pairing, and same with the equal perfect for me is Pertwee and Delgado.
So where does Ainley sit in terms of Doctor pairings, do you think, in terms of his era?
Ainley, for me, is his appearance is mostly associated with Davison.
Correct.
But I think he works probably best with Baker, especially in Mark of the Rani, just because they're just how they play the Time Lords as these two pompous hams, and they're dealing with humans as if they're nothing, and they just go, "Well, I'm indestructible. Oh, well, I'm indomitable." And Kate O'Mara, they're going, "You're both idiots."
And doesn't in one scene like Colin Baker sort of bumps into him and just like
no, they're bullyish and
it's like, what is going on there?
So that's kind of adorable for me, but for me, he is closely associated with Davison-Ainley relationship.
And I think what you said about Planet of Fire is absolutely spot on. I think that's the best performance.
Yes.
From that era, as it were. Yeah. Okay, cool. Excellent.
So what about you? Didn't need to be prompted there.
Seamless almost. It's almost like we're in the same room. My number 3 is Logopolis.
Hey.
A New Body at Last. The official debut of Anthony Ainley's Master. Along with Survival, this is probably for me. And actually, in retrospect, when I was writing this, Planet of Fire is probably in here as well, but I didn't actually have it down in my top 5. So the bookmark between Logopolis and Survival in terms of Ainley's best performance. And as I mentioned before, J&T was, unfortunately, during Anthony's time on the program, was shouting, "More steel, Anthony." So, of course, when you're hearing that cue, you're hamming it up, really, which is a shame. Basically, this Master doesn't waste any time. Basically, he's got a new body at last. He now sets up a trap for the Doctor, but I'm also going to try and take over the universe again. In this story is that his overconfidence, which in Logopolis, where he pauses the computations and he tries to turn it back on again. He goes, "Well, hold on." There's a bit of silence here. Something's going on. He just basically, after that, the whole thing goes to pot. The entropy ensues. And then watching Tom Baker's absolute distaste of taking Ainley's hand and shaking it. And turning away when they know they have to work together to try and resolve the issue. And it's really interesting that Ainley, when he's typing in on the Lightspeed overdrive, he's absolutely sort of, Adric and Earthshock is sort of like
stepping away from it.
He is like me with IT equipment and he's just pressing each button down very, very hard. I'll press this down.
This I.
Just that performance actually really interesting. But in terms of the Master's actions in the story, if you sort of think about it, and unfortunately it wasn't conveyed enough, I don't think, in Logopolis, where he's caused so much devastation. The Trakan Union has gone. Mm-hmm. Entropy has basically gone across a certain portion of the universe. There's bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's sort of glossed over. You know what I mean?
It's very much.
It's how they did it back then.
It's very much a case of, it's a dear Christopher H. Bidmead, who, the man who is an incredible writer and an incredible debt to Doctor Who. Just ask him. Look, he's very good with scientific ideas and making it serious, but he does not know how to. He goes, "Look at this interesting idea," and then they're going, "That's great," but you do realise this is the last time that we're seeing this character who's been with us for 7 years. And Christopher goes, "Yeah, sure, but I've got this really clever idea."
About a TARDIS and a TARDIS and
a
TARDIS.
And see, how clever I am. It's not about you, Chris. And so for me, there's that, just everything is, done so matter-of-factly, going, well, Trakan is gone. And Nis is there going, "My whole people are wiped out." He goes, "Yes, they are. You're in the body of my dad." "Yes, I am." And you're just there going, "Chris, who hurt you?" To the point of not showing any emotion. Yeah. So for me, the menace is so distant from actual emotional connection. There's all these great moments. Like, Tom is acting out of every orifice of his body. He's beautiful in his final story.
In that final season, actually.
Yeah. The stages of Tom is great to see. But for me, I don't have that as much of an emotional connection between him and Ainley, because Ainley is so much performing it as opposed to inhabiting it. I don't feel those. It's so performancy as opposed to feeling that. And so, especially when you've got that little subtlety between Delgado and Pertwee that you can feel so much with just a look or a grin or a pause, whereas Ainley is he hadn't settled into the role completely.
No.
But they try to set up this tension and this disdain. I think it's more Baker doing the heavy lifting. Yeah.
But in terms of the master and the body count, it's pretty impressive, that one. It's massively impressive.
And that should be played on.
Exactly.
But if you do play on it, it takes away from Christopher H. Bidgmy's wonderful ideas.
Yeah. But can you imagine, though, if that was now in the new series, you have Mantovani Gold, going, also Castrati will be out. There'd be gnashing of teeth and tears, everything's gone. But it was so understated. He's basically cancelled out a quarter of the universe. And it's just like,
that's it.
Let's just move on. So in terms of the master shenanigans, and body count, that's definitely in there. It's like the Die Hard of the master the master stories.
It is very, very high.
Yeah, very, very high.
Number 2.
My number 2 is one that you mentioned earlier. It is World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. Yeah, number
very
2
good.
For me. Yeah, everything that you said, I totally agree with. It is a masterpiece of modern Who. I find that Moffat can do incredibly good stuff when he's given a shopping list, but he gives it to himself. I know your thoughts on The Day of the Doctor, but he was given a list there, and I believe that he did some incredible things with that. But this one, he had his own shopping list that he had to resolve.
Yeah.
And his resolutions within the Capaldi era weren't that strong. I think he kind of lost his way. I know you didn't understand it, but I think his only good season finale up until that point was Big Bang.
Okay, I've got a piece of paper. I've got some butcher's paper in the corner. Can you whiteboard it for me?
I'll get Dr. Emmett Brown and a blackboard.
Please do.
And so he struggled quite a lot with season finales, but then he topped his best effort with Dr. Falls. And that two-parter with World Enough and Time is just incredible. Everyone's firing on all cylinders. He uses his concept, which he liked exploring so much, of time, but it actually works in this. He takes a complicated time concept and connects it to an emotional level. Yeah. You hearing me, Christopher H. Bidmead? No, you're too busy with your head
on Twitter. On Twitter.
Yeah, it's just a masterpiece. And to see the struggle of Gomez, the callousness of Sims. Russell T would always sprout at going of that the master is the mirror image of the Doctor. So his John Sims master was a mirror image of the big, bold David Tennant Doctor. So to see him here without that restriction, he brought in this calm, nuanced, menacing, ice cold.
And maybe it's because he's acting against type. So basically he's not supposed to be the mirror image of Tennant. He's actually acting completely different to an older Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's obviously played into the performance as well.
What was so important about season 10 was Gomez and her arc. She knocked it out of the park in so many different elements of season 8, 9, and especially in 10. And she went on this journey with Capaldi. So to see how that all came to a head and to have it such a sad ending that in the end they just wiped each other out. It's spoilers. To see that sad ending of just both Sims and Gomez
just lying on the floor, go
and the mask and the Doctor not being able to know that in some small way she did redeem herself. That he never those type of things, which is great storytelling. Just those little elements of sadness. Yeah, like that element of sadness of going Nardole is just marking time. Mm-hmm. And you're going, oh God, little elements of sadness. Gomez is never better. But I adored all her appearances as the Master. Sims redeems himself because I didn't like him at all in
any episodes. I think he was handed by a really bad script.
Yeah.
It was just basically more steel, John.
Yes, and to have him back in an entire episode where he's in disguise, in a very anally or Delgado.
And Thicko here didn't know.
So it's my number 2. I think it's one of the most powerful.
Let's watch it now.
Yeah, let's watch it again.
Let's do it. I actually think that was the peak of the new series.
Yeah.
And then, So my number 2 is The Mind of Evil.
Well, this is going to be a spoiler. Ping.
Pong.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I that's one of my.
It's one of yours as well.
And seeing I've only got one to go.
I don't get it still. We'll work on that. So basically, the Master's first attempt at taking over the work via the Nestines, of course. And I don't know whether you know, it's spoilers, it didn't really sort of turn out that great. What a better way of destroying the world than actually setting up the superpowers or the nations against each other, especially the petty humans, and really, sort of think about, cry havoc and let's slip the dogs of war on us. Unit in the story, they've sort of switched from paranormal investigators to security detail, which they do in Day of the Darks as well. But
they go where they're needed.
A bit like Scooby-Doo gang, really, aren't they? And again, the Master's adopting another pseudonym, but not really changing his appearance. Bit of a character flaw there.
There is one. Oh no,
that's Terror of the Autons when he puts the mask on with the
mask of a guy with a beard, and he takes it off, and it's a guy with a beard.
Guy with a beard, and it's a really ill-fitting mask. And he pulls it off. He goes, "Hello, Governor," like that. The Master. Using the Keller machine to drive that wedge between the delegates on that peace mission. But then the interesting thing is that the machine, when it's used against him, his greatest fear is the Doctor. Now, sort of thinking about this, he's only really had one, well, if you sort of think about it, a televisual appearance as the Doctor, right? Now, after one story, you wouldn't think he'd be totally scared. However, this is where I think the Fanwank equation comes in. There's obviously some history. Fanwank happening beforehand, where he's obviously is very scared of the Doctor. I mean, I do enjoy the down to earth approach of his plan, but the only issue I have with this is that if the Master didn't get the dematerialization circuit off the Doctor and war did break out, he'd be sitting in his TARDIS for about 40 or 50 years waiting for the actual fallout to pass. But
well, like Michael Caine says in The Dark Knight, some men just want to watch the world burn.
The Master fears the Doctors think he's a bit of a pain in the bum, to be perfectly honest with you. And I sort of mentioned this on, I think, our top-rated Unit Stories podcast. I mentioned this story to throw back to season 7. But I was sort of thinking about this again today, is that, can you imagine Inferno with Delgado Master playing Stallman?
Oh, wow. And trying to convince everybody that this guy is, someone from another planet.
It might need another 2 episodes at the end of it to try and get it all in. Yeah. But, if you sort of switch out Stallman, you could potentially, I did that book about years ago. I think it was David McKenty wrote it, where basically it was like an alternate version of Inferno, where the Master was a Kaboshi, I can't remember his name. But anyway, it was quite good. But so I was thinking, if season 7 was still going, and I said we'll bring the Master in earlier, I could see him in that season being in Inferno.
Yeah.
Hello, Big Finish, you want the royalties?
Well, it's written by the same guy. It's Don Horton.
Well, there you go. Exactly. So I like Mind of Evil. It's a really good story. And I just like how he, instead of having Alien of the Week turn up and try and stuff things up, he basically said, I'm going to blow up the world by setting them against each other.
Yeah.
And here's my little bit of machinery to sort of help things along the way. And Puff the Magic Dragon's going to make an appearance.
He left Honolulu just to come here.
He did, actually, yes.
But yeah, well, for me, surprise, it's my number 1. It's my favourite Master story because Delgado is at his best. He plays Gone Are the Silly Disguises and Hello, London Gangster. He's in the immaculate suit.
It's Snatch, isn't it?
And it is. And he's got the cigar, and he's got the menacing music playing on the radio. Then he turns it off. He's just oozing that London gangster feel. His interplay with Pertwee is second to none. Yeah. They have so many great interactions where they're toying with each other, playing this game of chess at the desk, and the gun is pulled. I'll shoot you in both your hearts, and Pertwee is so cool, going, "Oh, why wait?" and all this type of stuff. But then you see the real desperation, and you do see that case of the Master needs the Doctor more than the Doctor needs the Master. So you see that type of dynamic that there's been there for years. Yeah. Fanwank maybe, but how desperate and how panicked the Master is when he fears the Doctor's dying, and bring him back to life, and how relieved he is when he's alive is powerful. His manipulation of the people he has under his power is really quite menacing. The scene at the end when he does the and he does the driving the car is aimed and ready to fire. Yes. There's some beautiful moments there. Yeah. And you believe the Doctor at the end. Oh no, at the end he I get it mixed up with the other one when he goes, I'm going to enjoy it. That's at the end of Autons. But this one he goes, I'm here with you, Brigadier. Yeah, the Master gets away. So he wins the day in the end. He gets his dematerialization circuit. But his relationship with Pertwee is really good in there, and his relationship with Mela is really good as well.
Yeah.
And he's just so suave, and he's just so cool in that. I think it's prime Delgado.
It's interesting though, because like 1 minute he's doing nuclear war, 1 minute he's alien invasions, next thing he's trying to do Magna Carta. there's no rhyme or reason. It's like the Magna Carta's like, I'm just going to take the piss out of this. Just do it to annoy some people, and get a crazy robot in. But
a robot, that's fun. Yeah, and that playing humans against humans is really good. And also, it's a grim story as well in many ways. It's got this nihilistic view of humanity with all the evil and fear sucked into this machine, and that can be then used as a weapon against humanity. Is grim stuff, but it moves at a great pace, and you see that desperation when he is being attacked by his own.
And the sound effects too, you know what I mean? Like the whole build up of it as well.
Just that
wom,
is so menacing. And he commits to it. You believe the fear in him. And when he looks at that, and he's like, the thing he does with his hand, he's like the tension, and he squeezes his hand and opens and closes his hand as he's trying to gain control. And he sees that menacing view of the doctor over him. It's powerful stuff. It's great stuff. It's Delgado working hard.
So Mind of Evil, do you prefer watching it in colour or black and white?
Yeah, I watched it for so long in black and white. And the Blu-ray edition of it is immaculate. So the purist in me wants to watch it in colour the whole time, because that's how they watched it in TV in the really expensive houses that had a colour TV. In
I
71.
didn't.
But it's just as good in both.
Yeah.
Black and white and colour. There's some great stuff to be had. And like on the VHS release when they had the little special features.
Oh, yes.
The hint, the little tantalising little moments where to go from black and white to colour and then back into black. Very beautifully done.
Oh my God. Amazing, isn't it? It's only like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It came out on VHS, and now it's like it was colour, and they said a little taster, Easter egg, fade in colour, fade back out. And now it's on your bookshelf in full colour.
In full colour.
It's bonkers.
It's insane how far we've gone, which has helped us Who fans immeasurably. Do you prefer the colour or the black and white?
I saw it in black and white first time. Yeah. And same with the Demons and Terror of the Autons and Solarians and quite a few of them actually. But I do enjoy watching them in colour, but then I'm also the frisson of going back to the good old days of watching them in black and white.
That nostalgia.
Especially, in Bastards of Death as well. Nobody ever saw it.
Yeah.
Watching that Pertwee run of the 1986, which was how many years ago? You're the teacher. I think the Demons works better.
Yeah.
I think in black and white.
Well, yeah. So for me, Mind of Evil is my favourite Master story. It's written by Don Horton, who's one of my favourite ever Who writers, and he only ever wrote 2 stories. And they're my top 5 Pertwee stories, Inferno and
Mind of Evil. Yeah.
They're in my top 5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
And now it's time for you. I've done my one. What's your number one? And you've already mentioned...
Yes, we had a bit of a snapperoni on this. So it is, again, mine is actually the Deadly Assassin. So basically, Delgado, unfortunately, is dead.
He is.
But it's not a problem. They'll bring him back as a shriveled up old prune. For me, this is my favourite Master story, and it's actually one of the favourite stories for me from the Tom Baker era. You mentioned before the Master was reduced to this shambling, state almost, where... Delgado was stocky, handsome, and full of confidence and menace, and
flirting with Ingrid Pitt in
absolutely,
Atlantis.
as we all do. And now he's just this shambling wreck of a cadaver.
Yeah.
Basically, only hate is keeping him alive, as it were. Basically, he's just trying to renew himself and just keep himself going, as it were. And, if he can do this by any means possible, and also including throwing the Doctor under a bus, then it's all positive. Like you, I thought Pratt was fantastic as the Master, and the makeup and the costuming for 1977 is still pretty impressive today.
Yes.
I know the eyeballs look a bit funny, but, God, it's actually quite a gruesome look.
Well, it's really interesting because it is like, it is a mask.
Yes.
And so it's meant to be his face, so it is both his face and a mask.
Yeah.
But I believe his face is literally frozen in this position of just... the teeth don't move, the eyes don't move. His face is so decayed that he can barely move. He has no facial expression. It's just a pure anger and hatred that
Yeah.
is locked in there.
It's almost like he's working for the Republican Party. The Master, again, uses somebody's ambition for power for himself. You know what I mean? So Goth obviously felt he should be president, sort of entitled, a bit like the guy from the Sea Devils, the governor.
Yeah.
You know, uses that sort of, I've been wronged in some way. He'll just basically take that and run with it, as it were, and use it for his own means.
People are just puppets to him.
Absolutely. And I think the story, you mentioned before, the Matrix scenes are fantastic. Not the latest Matrix film, but the old Matrix films are fantastic. And in terms of that story, it actually works better for not having a companion in there.
Yeah.
I think having a Sarah Jane or a Leela in that story would actually constrict it a lot. But just having, the focus solely on the Doctor and the jeopardy, he's got nobody else to sort of help him get him out of it.
Yeah, and especially because, the last time we saw him is Frontier in Space, and there's some wonderful moments in there where you finally see an end to the arc of the Master's relationship with the companion, with Katie.
That's right.
With Joe Grant, because in the first story, he immediately hypnotizes her and takes her over to kill the Doctor.
Yeah.
But in their final appearance together, she is strong enough now to stop his power.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful moment.
Yes.
But that takes time. That takes 3 years of work with great actors. So to just focus on, let's just have this relationship between the Doctor and the Master.
The Holmes's view on Time Lord society at the time was controversial. But now in retrospect, it's quite subtle and nuanced compared to the car crash that was the Turtless Children, as I know you're a big fan of. The Master works so much better when his back is against the wall. He's desperate for survival, desperate for so many things to happen. And when it's served up with a nice dollop of revenge on top, this is a story for me in terms of the top Master story. So yes,
my 5, you're 1.
Now I've got some notable mentions here.
Yes.
Now I think you mentioned the most before though. So obviously Planet of Fire, Survival, Terror of the Audrons, and the Sea Devils. There's a fantastic book called The Harvest of Time by Alistair Reynolds. Have you read it?
I have not read it.
It is absolutely fantastic. It captures the Delgado-Pertwee relationship and a story of that era beautifully.
Was there a Virgin book as well with just Unit and the Master? There was.
I think there was. I think it might have been that Parallel Universe one. I can't remember what it was. But I know that was the most recent book I read, and it was really, really good. And I know Last of the Ganymede by Mark Gaddis was quite good as a book. But that Alistair Reynolds book just captures beautifully the Pertwee era.
Yeah, notable exceptions for me. I'm glad I got to mention...
Time Flight.
Why is he still in the costume when nobody's around?
I don't know. Why is he covered in green snipe?
Why is he covered in green snipe? There's some great stuff in Frontier in Space.
Yes.
And the way that Delgado is, he's funny and... His relationship with Joe is great. His relationship with the Ogrons is great. Him and Pertwee, of course, are amazing. I actually quite like the relationship between the Master and the Doctor in Scream of the Shulker. How the Doctor has the Master as like this. This robotic representation. That
Alfred.
Almost can't leave the TARDIS, yes. And Derek Jacobi doing a wonderful job with the voice there.
Yes,
those moments, those scenes. Much has been said about the phoned-it-in performance of Richard E. Grant in that, but his scenes with Jacobi are actually quite good. And I've got a nice little soft spot for Eric.
Yeah, more camp than a row of tents. Yes. The Carry On Master.
Beautiful moment with Bruce. You're sick.
Yes,
child.
It's aged well, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah. It's like the thing Anthony Ailey going, I think I'm going to play this quite camp and over the top. Eric Roberts goes, hold my beer.
Hold my ham.
But of course, if anyone can bring someone back and make them do 27 box sets, it's Big Finish.
And even they've got a Master who they cast and they don't talk about.
Ooh.
James Dreyfus. Yes.
Which one's James Dreyfus?
He was hold on, let me get this straight. He appeared in some Big Finish stories with the other non-canon First Doctor, David Bradley. But then there was a bit of a difference of opinion.
Right.
And yes, Big Finish decided to let him go, but not really let him go. Didn't tell him, yeah.
Well, okay, I thought there was only ever one Master on Big Finish.
Oh, no, there's about 118 of them.
But there's only one. Jeffrey Beavers.
No, Gordon Tipple. He's my favourite Tipple.
Oh, hello. I appear to have gotten stuck touching this grandfather clock in this antique shop. Well, while I'm waiting to die, here is my top 5 Master appearances. Starting with 2 honourable mentions. First off, Professor Yana is the Master. It's a damning indictment that Jacoby's 90 seconds as the Master outshines the collective runtime of all the modern Masters, but there you go. The power of the performance comes from the stark contrast between the kindly Yana and the vengeful and insect-hating reawakened Master. If only we'd had this Master instead of whatever the hell John Sims thought he was doing. And my second honourable mention is Anthony Ainley under the Khalid makeup. Time Flight deservedly comes in for its fair share of stick. Indeed, if this were a J-horror movie, you'd chop off its foot, stick it in a sack, then feed it its own vomit, just to make sure it gets the punishment it so richly deserves. That aside, what positive can we take away from this dog of a story? Of course, Ainley's over-the-top performance as the cosmic wizard Khalid. Amidst all the plasmatons, dodgy CSO and teeny tiny soundstage, not to mention you can see Peter Davison visibly realising perhaps Doctor Who isn't quite for him, Ainley's gibbering, nonsensical Khalid remains a firm favourite in this household. And now, our top 5. Eric Roberts is the Master. The better-looking Roberts sibling absolutely grabs the Vancouver scenery and takes a big wet bite out of it as he dresses for the occasion and almost steals the TV movie from Paul McGann. Robert cops a lot of stick for his movie choices, but it is clear in his appearance here that he is relishing the opportunity to play the role close to the knuckle and also unleashing when the occasion demands it. His Master is a sinister sociopath, a Time Lord operating right on the edge of existence, willing to do anything to live. John Sims Master in World Enough and Time / The Doctor Falls. Thankfully, we can forget the RTD version of the Sims Master, through the use of psychedelic drugs, a hammer and a small ferret of course, and instead embrace the Moffat version. John Sims' iteration of the Master in the RTD era was utterly awful, a gabbling maniac with all the subtlety of a hammer to the testicles. Instead, it took the brilliance and subtlety of a Moffat script, operating on all cinders even at the fag end of his reign, to reintroduce and reinvent the Sims Master for a new generation of jaded fans. Moffat takes all the tired old tropes of the Ainley Master, elaborate planning and crazy disguises, and morphs them into 21st century brilliance. Sims, a consummate actor, takes the opportunity offered with both hands and brilliantly portrays a role of two halves. The kindly-ish character Razor, leading Bill by the hand to her doom, and the triumphant Master, willing to do all sorts of unmentionable things with his female alter version. Geoffrey Beavers is the Master in The Keeper of Traken. The seduction of Cassia, first as a teenager, then as an adult, is probably the most heinous thing the Master has ever done, the very personification of dripping poison into someone's ear. In fact, everything that befalls Traken, from this moment to Logopolis, is down to the effect the Master had on Cassia. Beavers' Master, aside from having the sort of voice one could just sink into and luxuriate forever, is adept at playing the long game, and not only that, proves himself to be something of a cancer in Traken society, first as an innocuous statue, then latterly as a disease raging like wildfire, undermining the very foundations of the civilization. This is a Master who plans, and plans well, and his final horrifying trap, capturing, taming, and finally overwhelming Tremas, is something all fans should reflect on with a shudder. Anthony Ainley learns to be subtle in survival. After Anthony Ainley's delightful performance in Keeper of Traken, where he indicated he seemed to be an actor who would be an ornament for Doctor Who, his slide into camp buffoonery in stories like Time Flight, or irrelevance in stories like The King's Demons, was a sad sight to behold. It's bad when you know someone has the ability, and demonstrates again and again an inability or unwillingness to rise above some very duff material. That said, Ainley triumphs as the Master in survival. He balances the desperation to survive and control that is a hallmark of the character with a softer edge of malign intensity. It doesn't hurt that he's given a costume that far better suits him and a story that plays to his strengths. Peter Pratt rips it up in The Deadly Assassin. I first fell in love with The Deadly Assassin way back in the early 1980s when I devoured the novelisation. That blood-drippingly great cover hid a delightfully dark tale of political chicanery and bastardry, with Robert Holmes debauching the Time Lord Society the Dwas and Jan Vincent Rudsky had so come to love and admire. The diseased, corrupted outer shell of the Master is a perfect exterior glimpse of the insanity that has clearly devoured his mind and soul in his desperation to survive a failing body. Indeed, there is something to be said that the decay of the Time Lord Society aptly mirrors that of the Master. Pratt makes fantastic use of his voice in what is otherwise a physically limited role, and it is a voice that should lull all devoted fans of this story into a most nightmarish sleep. And finally, drum roll please! That's right! Roger Delgado is the Master in The Terror of the Autons. What can one say? In the space of one story, Roger Caesar Marius Bernard Delgado Torres Castillo Roberto absolutely shines and makes the role his own. It's a bit shocking and sad to realise he was only in the role for 2 years before his untimely demise far from his family in a remote and backward country. But fans of the show and of the man himself can take great comfort that he brought to us all an urbane, witty, determined and frankly fun portrayal as the Moriarty to the Doctor's Sherlock Holmes. I dare to say that on more than one occasion this great man outshone the other great man. Nevertheless, in The Terror of the Autons, the Master, with Delgado's magnificently controlled performance, leaps fully formed from Robert Holmes's forehead and into our rapt imaginations.
Got lots of listener and Twitter feedback, Rob, so I might get you to give me a hand reading this out. So we'll start with this one here.
I'll read Anthony Carroll first. Easy, all of season 8, apart from Colony, and then add Sea Devils. All right, okay.
It's almost like a recipe, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. Just take out Colony, add some Sea Devils. Yeah. Next up, we have the wonderful friend of the podcast, Dave Hoskins, saying there are other decent master stories, but the only one he really works in is The Deadly Assassin. Daniel O. Mahoney wrote a great article about this in DWB, in particular how the Master is usually just a villain-shaped story point as opposed to a character, and he's spot on. He, she is written differently in the new series, in fairness.
Brett Dickinson, his top 5 are Terror of the Autons is number 1, number 2, The Demons, number 3, Sea Devils, number 4, Frontier in Space, and number 5, Logopolis.
Wow.
He says Delgado is clearly the best version, but I also have a soft spot for Ainley as well.
Clearly, we can see that. Yes. Next up, 26 Glorious Years. 5, Survival, Ainley's wonderfully understated swan song. 4, Deadly Assassins, predictable as ever, Doctor. 3, Terror of the Autons, I'm simply trying out a new model. 2, The Sea Devils. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Not really, you know. And 1, The Demons. Existentially speaking. So there you go.
Very good. So Andy Taylor is next, not the guitarist from Duran Duran. It's shame.
Or is it?
Actually, Duran Duran getting inducted into the Hall of Fame.
As they should.
I did press I got the Russian bots on that one.
And when they do get into the Hall of Fame, you know what we'll do? Oh. Dance into the fire.
Wild Boys. Yes, exactly. So number 1 is Terror of the Autons. His number 2 is Deadly Assassin. 3, World Enough and Time. The portrayal Sim deserved. Number 4, The Demons. And number 5, Mind of Evil. There's some great choices by these people.
There's some very good choices.
Very fine choices. The great thing is they reflect mine and yours. This one's from Jed Sweeney, Carl the Catters. Basically, he says Utopia, but only the bit where Jacoby became the Master. I still can't work out what he did to his eyes after he opened watch, but whatever he did, he was acting genius.
You just turned to Russell T Davies and goes, oh, how do actors do it with their eyes? Oh, wonderful, marvelous,
That is absolutely one of the best moments ever, where he opens that watch. And Jacoby was fantastic.
Yes, those 5 seconds were incredible.
Yeah, it was absolutely. It's just a shame he didn't get more. And Jed continues, whilst I was a bit meh over Ainley's Master, it was good in Trial episode 13 to have his dialogue written by Robert Holmes, and I thought the way he spoke to the courtroom was the way I wanted his Master to be. Proof for me that Holmes knew the character better than most. Charles Morris says, The Mind of Evil.
Correct. That's my number 1.
That's
Charles,
it.
Let's go. Charles, let's go have a beer. Andy K. Top 2 are The Demons and The Terror of the Autons. No question. Okay, well, we won't ask.
Johnny Dab. Hopefully your favourite dance is the dab. Number 5 is The Keeper of Traken. Why is it every time Cassie says the evil stands right before your eyes, I think you're not bloody kidding. She is a crazy loon. Yeah, she's a bit nutso.
Well done, Mr. Beavers, with your soft
He's got a very nice silky voice, hasn't he? Really?
Yeah.
Number 4, Deadly Assassin. I love the bit inside the Matrix. Number 3 is Master. Big Finish, 49.
Hey.
Yeah. It's a very creepy tale, and Jeffrey really builds up on his Master's character. Actually, that's pretty good, actually. I must admit, I have listened to a couple of those.
Yeah, it's the most out there of the 3, because there's Omega, Master and Davros.
Oh, yes, that's right, yes. Number 2, Unit Dominion. Big Finish box set. There are 2 doctors working together in this, and there are a few twists I didn't see coming, which is always cool when it happens. I think I vaguely remember that one. Was that the one with Alex McQueen? I can't remember.
I think Dominion isn't it? Yeah,
I don't know. It all sort of blurs into one, but I believe you. Number 1 is the La Demons. Roger Delgado will always be the best Master. Many thanks from Johnny D from Old Blighty and
Keep punching.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Herald of Creation.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, the man who did the ultimate Doctor Who survey through lockdowns. Thank you so much. You kept me going for that whole time. 5, Utopia. 4, Terror of the Autons. 3, Walden Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. 2, The Five Doctors. Ooh, and 1, Castrovalva.
5 Doctors, though. It's interesting because the Master has the best intentions, which then slowly turns into a pile of poo.
Yeah, and it's all Pertwee's fault.
It's all pooey. I return it at the earliest opportunity.
Yes, forged, no doubt.
Yeah, so basically he has no trust whatsoever. Dave from the Doctor Who Show. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Basically, let's read out his top 5. So his number 5 is Planet of Fire. Number 4 is Utopia. Number 3 is the Sea Devils. Number 2 is Survival. And number 1 is the Demons. Non-canon, worthy mentions are First Frontier and Face of the Enemy.
That's the one.
That's the book.
That's the
yes,
one. Face of the Enemy. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. It's a very good book. Now, I did reply to Dave and said, with Utopia, why was it in your number 4? And I sort of said, is it only because of the last 5 minutes? Really, because that's why everybody sort of says. But I'll get you to read out what Dave responded to me.
100%. It's such a big deal, and the build-up is very effective. Also, that few minutes with Sims, where he steals the TARDIS and does the big "fuck you," I'm not going to explain my plan, is cool. See, for me, it's the opposite, though. You're there going, oh my gosh, I've got Jacoby. He's amazing. He's cool. He's dark. He's a little bit theatrical. Oh, he's been shot. Oh no, here comes the ham. Oh, it's so hammy and big and top. And he's, oh no, we're going to get this for 2 episodes. And then in the end of time. Yeah. I can see it coming.
See, I always thought, though, like Missy was ham as well. There's a recipe called Missy Surprise. This is 5 kilos of ham. Put on a plate.
Yeah, it's a different thing for me. Gomez has this style and this surreal delivery and this grace about her, whereas Sims was just all big and loud and bombastic.
Yeah.
So.
More steel, John. More steel.
More steel.
Iron steel.
Next up, Metal Whovian, James. Sorry that 4 out of the 5 of my favourites are Big Finish. Lord. That's okay. 5, Master. 4, The War Master. Heart of Darkness. Jacoby is back. 3, Wild Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. 2, Masterful. Oh, that's with like all the masters together in a room. It's like Big Brother, isn't it? And they just go, I'm more master than you are.
Anything you can master, I can master better.
And 1, Ravenous 4, Day of the Master. So that is quite a lot of Big Finish. I think every time we mention a Big Finish story, Nicholas Briggs gets his wings. So that's great.
He does, actually. Although, I mean, to Nick's credit, he did. I did sort of take the piss out of him and said, when's the Bandrel Ambassador 23 CD box set? He goes, I'll write that idea down. So, coming soon. And I want my pound of flesh for suggesting that.
You deserve it.
The Watcher. 1963 says, I know you don't have any time for Big Finish.
You do have time. You had time like in the first couple of years when it came out.
I did. I quite enjoyed it. And it just went, fan wanky. So number 1 was World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. Number 2 was Utopia. Number 3 was Deadly Assassin. Number 4 was Mind of Evil. And number 5 was the movie.
Well, there you go.
There you go. It has...
That's an interesting range of different masters as well.
Yes, absolutely. You got one from... No, you don't. There's no Ainley there. And, there's no Beavers. Gordon Tipple was in the beginning of the TV movie.
And no Sasha.
That's a good thing.
No Sashas at all.
No, he's just awful. Also, Sirens of Audio says Master by Joseph Lister, starring Jeffrey Beavers and McCoy. Chilling. Free to hear on Spotify.
Hey.
So there you go. So make sure you use your premium Spotify subscription on that. Jace Mayo says, I can see Utopia popping up as a single story again. So his number 5 is the Sea Devils. Number 4 is World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. Survival is number 3. Number 2, The Demons. And number 1, Deadly Assassin.
Very popular choice.
Some great choices there.
Great choices.
I like it when they align with mine.
Sean Mills, The Sea Devils, Pertwee and Delgado sword fighting. And then they get on camera and they get their hairpace.
Exactly, and then have a sandwich as well. Probably a tuna sandwich, I imagine. And then Bernie says, Terror of the Autons, Logopolis, Deadly Assassin, Sea Devils, and World Enough and Time. Lots of love for that World Enough and Time.
It's a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all our listener feedback as well.
Thank you so much for getting involved in the conversation, as I like to say.
Exactly, and some of that feedback has been from over a year, so thank you very much for your
You've
patience.
been waiting very patiently.
Absolutely right. Rob, thank you very much for coming onto our podcast today. And again, apologies for the delay. You got pandemic. Axl Rose changing his recording dates every 3 days. So yeah, thank you for your patience. It was great to have you back.
It's great to be back. I always love chatting with you guys. And Rob, I'm sending my love to you wherever you are.
This episode going out is actually our 100th episode.
Get out. Really?
Yeah, I know. But as you know, we do things very differently here. So basically our 101 episode will be the hashtag celebration episode. So our next episode will be dragging through the archives.
Great.
Through the year 1982. 82 was when the Fifth Doctor made his debut.
Yeah.
The greatest computer ever made also made its day. It was launched. Commodore 64, that is, and not the Spectrum.
Are you keeping up with the Commodore?
It's always keeping up with me. And of course, the greatest rock album ever released that year was, of course, Chipmunk Rock. So basically, go for that year with me. I'm getting a special guest.
Oh, yes.
Chris Chibnall's coming over from the Doll Queue and will be helping me. No. So basically, Rob will be back. The Hammer of God will be back. Destroyer of Desks. He'll be back on board. And I've given him some homework where we're going through all those fanzines of 1982 and we're picking out the more interesting items, shall we say. And of course, going through all the letters pages and making sure that we read out the then addresses of famous Doctor Who fans.
Well, that's the big thing, isn't it? Yeah, all those images of Capaldi have come out. Like we talked about it. Just that explosion, like him with Pertwee, him with
How
Sarah
is good
Jane.
is that? That is fantastic.
So great.
That is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
I think I sent you one. It's like, look at this. And we're like, oh, you could tell the man had enthusiasm for the show back then. He lost it for a little bit.
He became a proper artist, went to art school, burned all his Doctor Who stuff, joined a punk band with with Craig Ferguson.
That's right. And I don't know whether you know, but Peter Capaldi's first film was actually a local hero.
Yeah, it was. Well, and he got it from, he was in an elevator with the director. They got into a conversation, and the director remembered him and got him to audition and got into.
There you go.
Yeah, and he's great in Local Hero.
He's great. So
he falls in love with a mermaid.
Well, don't we all? Actually, it's a very good film, and of course, Mark and Melbourne wrote the music.
Beautiful, yeah. Beautiful piece of music.
But thank you very much for coming over, Rob, and spending some time with not only myself but our listeners as well.
Well,
and
I'm looking forward to your 102nd episode, which will be top 5 guests on 42 to Doomsday.
We'll call you. I'm just looking awkwardly away towards a corner of my room that needs a bit of a clean. But yeah, we'll get back to you. But thanks again, mate. Thanks for coming over. Rob will be back next episode as well, so we're looking forward to that. And prepare your eardrums for a explosion not heard since Hendrix played for the Beatles in 1967.
It's going to be real.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
And keep punching! Chris Chibnall in the balls.
You've just listened to another episode of 42 to Doomsday, the podcast that loves talking about Doctor Who. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Please drop us a line at 42todoomsday@gmail.com. We can be reached at facebook.com/42 to Doomsday. If brevity is your game, we can be found on Twitter at 42 to Doomsday. Please check out our blog, 42todoomsday.wordpress.com, where Mark and I occasionally have something interesting to say. Aside from iTunes, you can listen to us via Stitcher and Player FM. If you enjoyed listening to us, leave a review on iTunes. As always, thank you for listening. Have a great week. We'll speak with you again soon.
Thanks, Gov.